Okay, think about this for a second. You're just walking, right? Maybe glancing at your phone, not really paying full attention, and then boom,
Mm-hmm.
you hit an uneven bit of pavement, someone bumps into you, you step on something loose, that sudden jolt where you almost lose it.
Yeah, that little heart in your throat moment.
Exactly. And most of those stumbles, maybe even falls, they don't happen when you're doing something planned, do they? It's almost always the unexpected stuff that catches you.
That's absolutely right. It's those unpredictable, everyday things that really challenge our balance. That's often where the trouble starts.
And that right there is what we're getting into in this deep dive. We're exploring how to understand balance better, but more than that, how to fundamentally improve it.
Specifically, we're looking at a powerful combined approach that seems really tailored to handle exactly those moments of surprise.
Yeah, we've been digging into sources discussing training two really critical reflexes. There's the vestibulo-ocular reflex, the VOR, and the vestibulospinal reflex, or VSR.
And a key theme across these sources is the role of unexpected challenges, unexpected postural perturbations, as they call them.
So our mission today, looking at this material, is to unpack why training these reflexes together, and especially throwing in those unpredictable curveballs, is seen as so effective.
Some sources are even calling it a potential game changer for how we maintain stability in the real world.
Okay, so let's start unpacking. Before we jump into training methods, maybe we should just briefly touch on the body's own built-in balance hardware, the vestibular system.
Good idea. So this system, located in your inner ear, it's kind of like your internal motion sensor and GPS rolled into one.
Right.
It's constantly feeding information to your brain about where you are in space and how you're moving. And the sources really emphasize it's a dual role.
Dual role.
Meaning it's essential for, one, keeping your vision stable when your head moves, and two, keeping your whole body stable and upright against gravity.
Got it. Vision and posture. And those two jobs are mainly handled by the reflexes we just mentioned, the VOR and VSR.
Exactly. The VOR is the one ensuring your eyes stay locked onto a target, even if your head's bouncing around, like when you're walking.
Mm-hmm. Keeps the world from looking like a shaky camera feed.
Precisely. And the VSR, that's the reflex, helping maintain your head and body posture. It responds to gravity, head movements.
Making those tiny automatic muscle adjustments that stop you from, well, just tipping over.
Spot on. Those constant, subtle corrections.
Okay, so if those are the core reflexes, how do we actually go about training them? Let's maybe start with the visual side, the VOR, and mastering your gaze.
Right. VOR training through gaze stabilization exercises is definitely a core component discussed in the sources.
And these exercises, like the VOR by one they mentioned, where you focus on a spot and move your head side to side or up and down, it sounds simple.
It does sound simple, but it directly targets that reflex loop between your inner ear, brain, and eye muscles.
And the benefit. What's the payoff according to the sources?
The big one is improved dynamic visual acuity. Basically, your vision stays sharper and less blurry when you're moving.
Okay, and why does that matter so much for balance, for you listening?
Well, think about navigating a busy street, or quickly looking over your shoulder, or even just reacting if you trip.
Yeah?
Having clear vision during movement is absolutely vital. It tells your brain where you are, what's around you, and helps you plan your next move to stay upright.
And what's really interesting, something the sources point out, is just how adaptable this VOR is.
It's not fixed. Targeted training can actually increase its gain. Gain, meaning the ratio of eye movement to head movement. Essentially, you can train your eyes to compensate more accurately and effectively for head motion. You can literally make the reflex work better.
Even compensating for existing deficits, the sources suggest.
Exactly.
Okay, so that covers the eyes, keeping vision stable while you or your head moves. Now let's shift to training the body itself. And this seems to be where that unexpected element really comes into play.
Yes, this brings us to VSR training, and specifically using what they call unexpected postural perturbations.
Perturbations. That's just anything that knocks you off balance a bit, right? A little push, a shift in the surface under your feet.
Correct. Anything that forces you to react to stay stable. And the key insight from the sources is that training with unpredictable perturbations seems to be the real leap forward.
They call it a game changer for dynamic stability.
They do. And the why seems crucial. Why does it have to be unpredictable?
Well, it seems logical, right? If real falls come from surprises, you train for surprises. But the sources explain it's about reactive balance control.
Predictable pushes or pulls, you brace for them. Your brain knows what's coming.
But unpredictable ones, they force those lightning-fast, almost involuntary reflexes, the VSR, to kick in properly.
It's less about building sheer strength to resist and more about teaching your nervous system that instant, optimal reaction when you weren't expecting it.
That speed and accuracy in reacting is what stops a little stumble turning into a proper fall.
And the mechanism they describe is fascinating. It forces your body to rapidly figure out and activate the right muscles.
And importantly, execute those compensatory steps catching yourself.
Exactly. And with this kind of training, those protective steps become faster, maybe bigger, more effective when it really counts.
The studies mentioned in the sources sound pretty convincing too. They show this type of training, often called PBT, perturbation-based training, significantly cuts fall risk.
Yeah, and they suggest it often works better than more standard, predictable balance exercises precisely because it hones that feedback control.
Your system's ability to sense, whoa, I'm going over,
Mm-hmm.
and recover as it's happening.
Mm-hmm. And, connecting back to your first point, stepping on that crack, getting bumped. This training is basically simulating those exact real-world moments.
It's training for the messy reality, not some perfectly controlled lab setting.
And building on that, how the body learns and adapts.
Mm-hmm.
There's another key benefit of this perturbation training highlighted in the sources, something called sensory reweighting.
Sensory reweighting. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It basically means your brain gets smarter about which sensory information, vision, vestibular feedback from your body to rely on most heavily in different situations to keep you balanced.
So like if you're walking on soft grass or in a dimly lit room.
Exactly. In those cases, maybe your visual input isn't totally reliable. The ground might look uneven or you can't see clearly.
Right.
So your brain learns to sort of turn down the volume on the unreliable visual signals and turn up the volume on signals from your inner ear, your vestibular system, and from your feet and joints, the somatosensory system.
Prioritizing the most trustworthy data for that specific moment.
Precisely. And perturbation training, because it challenges you in varied and unexpected ways, seems to explicitly train your brain to get better at making these sophisticated adjustments on the fly.
Okay, so we have VOR training sharpening vision during movement. We have VSR and perturbation training improving reactive body control and making the brain smarter with sensory input. But in the real world, it's not just one system doing its thing in isolation, is it?
No, absolutely not. That's the critical piece, isn't it? Real-world balance requires this seamless, incredibly fast integration of all the sensory information.
Vestibular, visual, somatosensory.
Right. And coordinating all that input with the right motor responses. It's like a complex orchestra playing in perfect time.
And this seems to be why the sources emphasize the combined approach. Training VOR and gaze stabilization alongside the VSR training with unpredictable perturbations.
Exactly. It encourages and trains that vital integration.
Let's go back to that stumble example. You get bumped.
Okay.
In that split second, your VOR needs to instantly stabilize your gaze so you can actually see where you are and where to put your foot.
Get accurate visual feedback.
While at the same time, your VSR is firing off signals to make that protective step and tighten the right muscles to stop the fall.
Both systems working perfectly together in that dynamic, unexpected moment. That's the goal.
So putting this all together,
Yeah.
what's the actual payoff for you, the listener? What are the concrete functional improvements supported by the source material?
Well, the research highlighted in these sources consistently points to some pretty significant real-world benefits when you use this kind of combined challenging approach.
Such as?
Things like reduced symptoms of dizziness and vertigo. For people who struggle with that, it could be life-changing.
That's huge. What else?
Improved dynamic gait and balance.
Yeah.
Basically, moving more confidently and stably through complex environments.
Less hesitation, maybe.
Less hesitation, smoother movement. Also, better scores on those objective functional balance tests that doctors or therapists use.
Okay, measurable improvement.
And perhaps most importantly, increased confidence and consequently greater participation in daily life.
Because if you feel more stable, you're less likely to limit your activities, right?
Exactly. Fear of falling can be incredibly restricting. Feeling more secure on your feet opens up your world again.
So what this really boils down to, it seems, is that this combined training, especially with the unpredictable element, just mirrors the challenges of real life much better than, say, standing on one leg in a quiet room.
It absolutely does. Static exercises have their place, but life isn't static.
By training how your eyes work with movement and how your body reacts suddenly, under unpredictable conditions, you're building balance strategies that are just far more robust and adaptable.
Which leads, according to the sources, to that significantly enhanced overall dynamic postural stability.
And the ultimate goal for many, a documented reduction in the risk of falls.
Hmm.
So we've done a pretty deep dive here into why this combination of VOR and VSR training, particularly making it unpredictable, is being highlighted by the sources as such a potentially powerful approach.
It really seems to be about building that essential resilience, that confidence you need to navigate a world that isn't always stable or predictable.
Definitely. And maybe here's a final thought for you to mull over, drawing directly from what we've discussed based on the source material. If most of your real-world stumbles, those near misses or actual falls, truly come from the unexpected, what does that really tell you about the kind of preparation, the kind of training that might be the most valuable investment you can make in your balance?